Okay, let me turn the.
Okay, so let's start with telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're located, and the program you're in.
Okay, well, my name is Quaisha Williams, and I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm in the College Student Affairs Administration PhD program at the University of Georgia in Athens.
And what year are you?
Oh, like numbers. I'm a
Or
bit,
where are you in the process?
look, I was like, oh, that's a good question. So I'm a fifth year though. Yeah, fifth year. I'm a doctoral candidate, so I'm currently working on my dissertation proposal.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being willing to be interviewed for this podcast. I really do appreciate it. The first question I usually ask people, because it's curious of the assumptions that we have degrees. We could go and get any number of jobs or positions. Why did you choose to pursue a PhD?
Hmm. That's an interesting question. I was in a place where I had just had my first child. And so it was a few different things. Number one, my mentor, who I like looked up to more than anything in this world, she had told me when I was in grad school, she had two kids. Well, no, at that point she had one kid and she was married, and she was like, I want to go back to school and get my PhD, but she was like working full time, having all these different things I have going on. She's like, just do me a favor and make sure you get your PhD before you have to worry about like all this, because she said it just makes it so much harder. And so as soon as I was pregnant, I was like, oh no, she told me something to do and I didn't do it. And so that was like what made me start looking into programs. But after kind of being on, I took, excuse me, I took 12 weeks leave with my daughter, and I had a lot of time to think. And I was just more so like, I wanted to make a decision to transition out of like where I was and the job that I was working in. And so it's not that I was just so like, you know what, I'm going to get a PhD. I was like, you know what, I could get a PhD, or I could transition kind of out of higher ed to working in like college counseling at like a school, like a K through 12 type school. Or I was just going to completely go off the rails and be a nanny. So those were like my three, those are the three things that I came up with, because I was like, I just need to do something different. And so I put in applications to do all three of those things. And then I went and I interviewed for the UGA, the program that I'm actually currently in. And really what made me think, you know what, this is a real thing that I could do, was when I showed up for visiting days. I was like, okay, just, this is UGA, just get ready to be the black girl. I could give myself a pep talk, like, you got this. And then I walked in the room and there were like three other black women. And I was like, well, what? Like, y'all got other black people here? And then we met the other current students, and it was like so many black women. And I was just like, this is clearly where I need to be. And so that's how I got to the PhD thing. I wasn't really searching for higher knowledge. I guess
That's
in
so
some ways I
funny.
was, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, okay, so you are responsible for Tiny Humans now with an S, with the S.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and the question that I hear people saying all the time is like, how? Like, I like joke a lot to say that I don't know. I can even be responsible for myself. So like I'm be responsible for other people, like who like solely depend on me to survive. Um, so like how do you answer that question? Because I'm sure that's not the first time you've received that question about like how do you do it all?
How do I do it? It's funny, I was having a similar conversation. Well, I think one part of it is, I think black women are kind of socialized to do it all. And so it was kind of like no matter how many things you have going on, you do it all and you get it done and you do it well. So I think on one end, that was kind of like, it's not really failure in a sense, or not doing all these things is not really like an option. It's like these are the things that you have to take care of, and these are just the things that you have to do. Um, and so, not that that's necessarily the healthiest approach, but I think I was kind of that's what I was taught to do. But I think one of the biggest things is kind of making clear what my personal kind of like my priorities are, and like following behind because of that. So for me, I've never written or done schoolwork on Fridays. Like Fridays are my days where it's like, nah, I don't do that. So for me, when I just had one kid, Fridays was we're going to go to the library, we're going to go to gymnastics, we're going to go to the park. Like that was my day where we could be like, we could have a day for just me and when I had one little one. And so now that I have two little ones, one is in school. So Fridays are still the day that me and the smallest little one, we do the same thing. So we go to the park or just take a walk or different things like that. So really, for me, it was not knowing how to not do 1,000 things at one time, and B, like prioritizing what I needed to do. But I will say, and so my research is kind of on black mothers. A lot of kind of the literature will say that people will say that, one of the things they miss out on are maybe some career advancements or different things like that. So I will say that I feel like there are lots of things that I have not taken advantage of just because it wouldn't kind of work for my schedule. So I guess I'll say like because for me, my priority has always been my family. So it's like, yes, this PhD is really important, but my like raising of the tiny humans is kind of for me the most important job. So for me, it's like if it's going to be over something with the tiny humans or joining something that's not required for my degree, I'm gonna pick the tiny humans. Now there are times when I have picked the degree things, but for the most part, again, for me, it's a priority thing. So.
Yeah. And I would say like I've always admired that about you of like not only um, saying like these are my boundaries, this is what I will and I won't do for the good of my family, for my whole family, right? Because I would say it is clear from interacting with you that it is about your whole family. So yes, little tiny human children and your husband, nope, I can't do that. And being steadfast in that. Um, and the intentionality that you have in the ways that you approach family life. I've learned so much from you, even just by watching. So I wanted to let you know that, like, I don't know, I feel like it was like one of the like first times that I like really saw someone be like, mm-mm. And not because a lot of times I feel like people do it begrudgingly. Um, Whereas you seem very much like, nope, this is what I'm doing. This is what I care about. This is what centers, this is what grounds me. And so, no, I'm not going to sacrifice my family for this degree, even though I want this and I'm working towards it, but it doesn't mean it needs to be my whole life. Um, Whereas other people feel like they have to make this degree their whole life. Like I was talking to someone the other day and I asked them like, are you spending any time with your husband? And they were like, no, he can wait. I'm like, oh, I don't think he can wait. Like he's not important. But I mean, a lot of people have that attitude, and I feel like in the academy and higher ed, you're socialized to think or to put family and friends and anyone who is outside of you seeking this degree or you seeking promotion or whatever that is, the next step, because there's always something that everything has to come second to this goal. And you've been very intentional about not doing
Yes, we'll see how it fares me well on the job market. But yes. And I remember I read this chapter in Alice Walker's In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. And
Mm-hmm.
there's like a chapter and it's called A Writer Because of Not in Spite of My Children, or, something like that. So it just basically talked about this woman who was a writer, and she was saying, I'm a writer because of my children. Like, I write for my children. So that is why I have to give them a priority, because I'm doing this not for them. I do it for them, but I also do it for myself as well. But they are kind of the reason why I do what I do. Again, I wouldn't have pursued the PhD if I hadn't gotten pregnant and been like, oh snap, I kind of need to do that,
Which I feel like most people would have been like, well, I guess it's not in the cards for me. She's
huh?
on the way. That's funny. So then thinking about, family, work, school life. I know there's no such thing as a typical week in general. However, what does a week look like in your life?
Oh, I feel like now I actually do have typical weeks because my
Mm.
oldest is in kindergarten. So there's like a much stricter, like, kind of schedule. So a week is every day, about 5:45, alarm go off. Got to wake up. I'm Jordan because I'm gonna get littles confused. So got to wake up
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, my oldest, get her ready, send her off on the bus, come back, get my little 8-month-old Huey, get him ready and take him to daycare. So he goes to daycare most of the week right now because I'm really trying to focus on getting my dissertation proposal done. And so this was a little bit different than when I had Jordan. So when I had Jordan, I would keep her at least 2 days of the week, sometimes three, as opposed to Huey, he goes to daycare three, sometimes, most of the time, 4 days a week. So I've had to kind of adjust a little bit because I'm like, I really want to get this proposal kind of out of the way. So for me, I do that. I get him ready. I drop him off. Then I come back. I eat a bowl of Frosted Flakes. Exactly, Frosted Flakes and a banana. I like eat the same thing because it's quick and easy so that I can get down to writing, even though Dr. Lacey told me that that was a little intense, but I'm gonna work on that. But then I sit down at my dining room table, surrounded by notes and books and all those things, and I write from anywhere, sometimes either 7:30 or 8 until about 2 or 3 when it's time to pick up Jordan, the oldest, from school. Then I pick up the little from school. We come home. So I have a kindergartner, and we are working on getting, I don't want to say caught up because she's transitioning from a Montessori background. So it's a little bit of a difference. So we come home and then I become an English teacher, and we do letters, we do writing name practice, we do sight words and sight word games. Then I make dinner, and then I bathe the little humans. Well, a side note, shout out to my partner. I don't do all those things by myself, but we bathe them, divide and conquer, put them to sleep, and then what do? I watch Netflix, just to be real. Uh, and that's probably a typical week. So that's like a Monday through Wednesday, and then the only difference on Thursdays is I work at UGA, so I drive to Athens on Thursdays, and I work and I get off about 9, and then I drive back here, and then I go to sleep. And then on Fridays, again, as I mentioned earlier, I don't do like traditional academic work, so I just relax, go to the park, go grocery shopping, that type of thing. And then the weekends, for the most part, unless I'm like really feeling pressed that I need to do work on the weekends, I just kind of hang out with the family, get stuff ready for the next week. And yeah, that's a week. Oh,
I just
I'm
I want
tired
to say
just
the
talking about
third.
it.
So when I said the Thursday is 9 p.m., right? That you
Yes, I
get
get
off.
off at 9, and then I get home between like 10:30 and 11 because I'm like an hour and a half away from Athens.
Yeah. Um, yes, that is a lot. And some people would say, like, well, you're able to take off the weekends. How can you do that and not feel guilty about it?
Well, I think, and so the reason why I can do that and not feel guilty is because I've been working for like 3 to 4 days as soon as I wake up. until like the last minute that I can. So it makes me feel like, oh, you know what, you have, like, I've earned, quote unquote, I've earned it. So, and again, that does go back to my, like, kind of my non-negotiable part. Like, I don't want to be an absentee and no, again, I'd be like, everybody does this thing different. But for me, I'm like, I don't want, like, my mom, again, this is how I was socialized. Like, my mom worked so much, but she was always there, which I think is kind of weird, because I'm like, how were you always working, but you were also always there? So for me, it's just like, I want to be there. And not even just like, I want you to know I'm there. Like, I actually want to be there. So like this weekend, I took my daughter and one of her little friends, we went to the fair, and it's like, I want to do those things. Like, I want to like be involved and make memories and give you like cultural experiences and different things like that. So I give the weekend off, and I wouldn't even say it's off. It's just the other things that are important for me to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because you have other things in your life than the attention.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned this earlier, that your research is on mothers. Can you talk a little bit more about your research?
Yes. So currently right now, my research, I'm looking at, it's based off of, me. Um, and so for me, this, like, the kind of current climate over like the last few years. So like the first part of my dissertation, I write kind of like a story about how, like, so becoming a mother changed my life. Yes, lots of people say that. And then I say, becoming a mother, like in the context of like 2014, it changed my life, but it also kind of changed my worldview. So things that, I'm seeing on the news, things that we're having conversations about became very real. So it wasn't just like, oh, you know, Trayvon Martin was murdered. It was like, oh, Trayvon Martin was murdered. He's a Black child. Now I have a Black child. It was like intensified. So it was like, yes, I was upset, pissed, mad, hurt, all those things before, but all of those things just really magnified. And so for me, it was a lot of, and not just, so Trayvon was kind of like, I feel like my big one, but that was actually even before I became a mother. But around like the time, like a few months after Jordan was born, was Tamir Rice. So, just like all these things constantly in the media, and my friends, it was a lot of, especially with, so I only have, like, let's see, two other friends who had kids, but I am surrounded by, like, my circle is full of educators, mostly in a K through 12 setting. So there were a lot of conversations about, like, how do we move differently? How do we teach our kids differently now that, like, not that these things weren't happening before, but now that these things are super blatant, like people are blatantly out here, like, Black lives don't matter and XYZ. So how do we move different? And so for me, that what meant for me, I was like, you know what? I feel like I don't know enough about me, my culture. So for me, I went and read, I took a study abroad to Ghana. Like, I did all of these things to try to figure out, like, okay, what is it that I want to pass on? And for me, it wasn't just about my own child. For me, I saw like Black children, or like the Black community, as a part of my mothering, in a sense. And so my research is really trying to look at other Black mothers who work in the field of like student affairs, student development, that type of thing, and how kind of the cultural climate has impacted kind of their sense of consciousness as it relates to any social justice inequalities in general, and how that has impacted their mothering for their children, and also like for the community as a whole and the students that they work with. So I think Patricia Hill Collins, she uses this term called mother work, and she talks about how women of color, or mothers of color, are not just concerned about their children, they're concerned with the children of their community, because their children's lives can't be projected, their children's lives can't be advanced, their children can't be taken care of unless the entire community is. And so kind of just that whole concept, and basically how does that impact the work that Black mothers are doing in the field of student affairs.
So good. So good. I can't wait. I can't wait until you like collect the data and you write it up and all the publications are coming out. You know, if you choose to go that route. But at
You make
least
me hot.
can't wait to read it.
Like, oh, you make me hot. You said all those things. Whew.
It's so good. Like so well said of it's just I don't know. I'm just I don't have words. It's just I'm excited.
Oh, thank
So when you
you.
think about like who you were like or where you were just a year ago there, you were pregnant, right?
Say it one more time.
A year ago you were pregnant. Yes. Maybe like two
Yes.
years ago. 2 years or 2 years ago and thinking about that, you know, this dissertation proposal is coming up and that you would need to write it. And now being on this side of things where, you know, you're just about finished. You're gonna be finished next week because I'm gonna put it out there. What would you tell yourself? Like, what advice would you give yourself?
Mm. I would like give myself a break. I feel like so I started working on this dissertation proposal over a year ago, and in the middle, so I had like a good steady so I defended preliminary exams in January, kind of did the oral stuff in March, and so I was like, okay, I took some time to do a little bit more. For me, this whole process has been very reflexive because I really wanted to think through what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. So I did a lot of reading. I got a reading list from one of the members of my committee that was basically a lot of books. So not articles, like real books. That's why I can be like,
Mm-hmm.
well, in this chapter of Alice Walker's In Search of Our Mother's Garden, because that was one of the books on the list I had to read. So I did a lot of those things and I started writing in the summer, like plenty of time. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna knock this thing out. And then I decided to go back to work full time, which that definitely threw a wrench in my productivity plan, but I was still kind of trucking along. And then I had a death in my family. Um, that was a little bit unexpected. And I gave myself, in quotation marks, I gave myself a week off. I was like, oh yeah, you know, let's take this week and then, you know, just get back and do your thing. And I didn't realize how much of an impact. I didn't really give myself time to like grieve and sit with what was going on because I felt so pressured to like produce and like keep moving and keep writing. And so I spent a lot of time sitting, not writing, being anxious because I wasn't writing, and then being stressed. Like I'm missing several edges from this, from like the anxiety and stress of it all until I finally got to a point where I was like, I'm gonna take a little break. And my committee member was my chair actually. She was like, yeah, I really think you should just like take a minute. And so at that point, I was also like, let's see, maybe like 4 months pregnant. Like I just had a whole lot of things, just a whole lot of things going on. So for me, it would just to like give myself some grace and to just relax, and everything is done in due time. So my original plan was to finish last May. And so I really had to think about it and just like take time for myself. So I took the spring and the summer off. And I feel like I needed to have allowed myself to do that much earlier. It would have saved a lot of edges and just a lot of stress. Like I would have just, yeah.
Mm,
So Grace.
Grace, yes. Um, and I feel like one thing people may say to you like before you start a doc program, but like it doesn't really quite hit until it hits is that life will continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you decided to go do this program doesn't mean life will pause. And so all these big things will still happen and you have to like, you know, contend with that. And it won't always be easy.
Mm-hmm.
So to wrap up is to think about the person who at the time of recording, it's fall, and so people are working on their applications to different programs, or thinking about the people who it's their first semester in the program, what words of encouragement or advice or strategies would you provide for them?
Hmm. Let's see. For those applying, I would say really take some time, and this might change, but really take some time to try to figure out like exactly what it is you want in a program and what you want from a program so that you're very intentional to make sure that you're able to get all of those things. It's not always just about like who the faculty members are, because faculty members leave, and sometimes faculty members, they don't have time to really like do things with you. So, just like there are several things, like don't rest everything on one thing. It really needs to be like the best fit for you. So that's for the people applying. And then for the folks that are kind of new in this thing, uh, hmm. I feel like the thing I feel like that has really taken me through, and I have to like keep reminding myself this, not that I just like have this down pat, but someone said it in a class one time, but it really, really hit me when I used to do yoga. When my yoga instructor said it in a different manner, like someone told me, oh, actually, you know what? I'll say Jackie told me, she was my office mate my first year.
Mm-hmm.
She was saying, everybody is different. Everybody's on a different pace. Everybody's doing things different. You can't compare yourself to what other people are doing. Like you have to focus on what you're doing. Right? That was cute. I was like, yeah, girl, of course. But that didn't happen. And then like fast forward 2 years later, I'm at yoga, and Joan, that's her name, the yoga instructor, she was saying that you should focus like on your own intentions and on yourself. And she started every class and she would say, you can't look at the person on the yoga mat next to you. You don't know what kind of day they're having. Like they could be having a hard day and this is the only pose they can get to, or they could be having a glorious day. And that's why they flipping up the wall. She was like, you have to stay on your own mat and be with your own intentions. You can't look at it because you don't know that person's intentions. Maybe that person's intention was to just come there and be in the space. And you're like, okay, let me look at what they're doing to see what I'm doing. But that's not really your intention. So that would be my biggest thing. It's difficult. It's so difficult not to like compare or feel like you're not doing enough, feel like XYZ looking at everybody else, but you will just be you will have so much more sanity if you just stay on your yoga mat. Don't be looking at other people.
I said it to myself all the time. Stay on your mat because it's
Stay
so true. Like it's
on your yoga mat.
I mean, for the people who don't practice yoga, they're like, "Well, I don't get it." But when you are in class and you're looking at somebody else, it throws you off your own focus
Mm-hmm.
on your own pose, and you're gonna end up falling over because you're so busy looking at somebody. Even if like the slightest, like every inch or centimeter matters in yoga. And so the
Mm-hmm.
moment you turn your head or you do something that your attention goes somewhere else, you can like fall out of a pose or hurt. You can do a number of things. And
Yeah.
I just found that also to be true in life. You just gotta stay on your own mat because you don't know what's going on somebody else's.
You don't?
That is a perfect way to end this. Thank you so much for your time. How can people find you if they would like to connect with you?
So I'm like real bad at social media. So I have social media things, but you know what? I did commit to being more active on the Instagram. I call everything the.
Me too.
So my Instagram is, oh, and my Twitter too. They are the same. TheQTQ. Shout out to my high school friend Jasmine's mom. She used to call me QTQ, and for some reason that just kind of stuck. And those are like all of my handles. TheQTQ on Instagram and Twitter.
I think that's so funny because everybody I interviewed so far is like, I'm so bad at social media, or I only stalk other people.
See,
And
and
it's like on Instagram today. I
I feel
stalk
like this is gonna make, so apparently like Facebook is for like quote unquote old people, but I'm like I feel like I was a Facebook generation. So like
mm,
I still more of a Facebook person,
okay.
but I'm like trying to get out of it because sometimes Facebook be bad for you, bad for your mental.
Yeah, it's a struggle. We're not in a good place. And
You
I
on
can't
Facebook?
ever quite say that like I was completely down to Facebook. I mean, when it was really like the only option because my space was fading, sure I was with it, but like after I didn't get into Twitter until later. So, but when Instagram came, I was like, bye to the rest of you hoes. I don't really know like what's gonna happen.
And see, I'm not a big picture person, which is why
Mm,
Instagram is difficult for me.
mhm,
See, I like Facebook because Facebook gives sometimes false, but like Facebook, I have so many communities on there. So
mhm,
like I'm in a Black breastfeeding community when I got questions about that, or when I'm trying to figure out which kind of bottles I need or whatever. So I'll go there. I have like my, what do you call this place? City, my like small area of town has an
mhm.
online garage sale. So I'm always on there like, oh, does anybody got anything good for the sale for the low? So I feel like it allows me to like have these pockets of community.
Mm.
So that is why I like Facebook, but I don't like it at the same time.
Yeah, no, and that's really if I'm going on there. I'm mostly going to the groups, different communities that I
Mm-hmm.
belong to because there's just so much connected with the groups part. And if at any point I am on my feed, it's because I'm somewhere that I need to do something with my time or like preoccupy myself. But I don't know. I just feel like Instagram is just like babies and puppies and colors. And I didn't start posting until I got this whole business thing. But before that, I was just watching other people.
See, but I feel like that gives me the most. I feel like I guess it's there on Facebook too. But
Mm.
the pictures, like you know, like one of my friends will always say, like we'll like look at our friend, like dang, she is living her best life. Then I talk to her on the phone, she's like, it's all bad. I'm like, well, girl, you look like I would
You look
never
real
have
good
guessed.
on
Girl, you
Instagram.
look
Yeah.
real good. I'm like, girl, you was living the best life. You telling me your worst life. I'm
Confused.
confused.
I mean,
So
that's a
that's my
whole
confusion
other
with
podcast episode
Instagram.
about social media and people and their lives and things. But yeah. But thank you so much. I'm gonna let you go because it's late for those of you that know the time of this recording. But thank you so much. And um,
Thank you for having me.
yeah.